Good morning to all, and welcome to this Canada Post webinar on direct mail targeting and media. My name is Rodrigo Padilla, your webinar organizer and moderator. Please take note that this is a recording. It is a make good for this week's webinar where we had to cancel the webinar due to a technical issue. At Canada Post, we're rethinking direct mail, its role in the marketing mix, and how it supports the broader vision of integrated marketing. We are producing a four-part webinar series that will provide content that focuses on creating powerful synergies between physical, digital, social, and traditional media. Learn how to combine direct mail, email, web, and other media to increase marketing ROI and effectiveness. Today, with our third webinar in our series, we will hopefully help you understand how a relationship perspective changes the way you select media, shifting your priority from reach to quality and conversion. Before we start, let's take a moment to take care of some little housekeeping. For best audio results, I recommend that you use a headphone attached to your computer as we will be transmitting via the internet. For those who are interested, I will be sending out copies of the presentation, but only at the end of this four-part series, which should be around June 20th. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors who have made the series of educational webinars on direct marketing and direct mail possible. We have four sponsors to thank. A big thank you to XMPI, Xerox, the Low Martin Group, and of course, Canada Post. So without further ado, let's get started with today's webinar. Today's presenter and program ambassador for this webinar series is Marc Morin. Marc is a passionate marketing communications strategist with 30 plus years of hands-on experience in creating powerful, effective, and results-oriented material for national and international brands. He's also one of Canada's pioneers in relationship marketing education. Marc is president of Stratégie Marketing Direct, a relationship marketing agency focused on creating powerful, relevant B2Me marketing campaigns. Hello, Marc. How are you?
I'm fine, Rodrigo. How are you today?
Thank you. Very well. Thank you so much.
Excellent. The nice weather is back, and so it's just a wonderful day.
Great.
So we're going to be talking today about media and targeting, about how you can use traditional, direct, digital, and physical media to reach your customers, to create a synergy, to draw people into your relationship marketing process. So we're going to be looking at ways of using direct mail lists. We're going to talk about email. We're going to talk about some of the tools you can use also to do the targeting of your database to be able to maximize the impact of whatever you do. So over the next 45 minutes, we're going to be talking about the way of thinking about how to select media in a direct relationship marketing environment. We're going to be looking at some of the modeling tools that we have available to us to be able to be more focused in what we do. So let's start off by taking a look at the perspective, the relationship marketing perspective of how we would select and build a marketing plan, select the media, do the targeting, and build an integrated campaign that will maximize ROI. Our priorities in a relationship marketing, multi-channel relationship marketing environment is to focus not as much on reach and frequency, which are typically the measurements that we're looking for when we do awareness advertising, when we do a traditional mass media campaign, trying to or attempting to reach as many customers as possible with a sufficient number of contacts, a frequency that's sufficient to be able to generate a high level of awareness. In relationship marketing, in multi-channel integrated direct marketing, what we're trying to achieve here is to get individuals to act, to move forward in their decision journey, to make some kind of concrete movement, gesture, or action that will allow us to understand who they are and where they're going in their process. So our criteria in evaluating media, in evaluating lists, in evaluating tools will be more focusing on responsiveness. In other words, the propensity of an individual to, and the receptiveness of an individual to a marketing message through specific channels. For example, a list of people who respond to a direct mail campaign, or an email campaign, or catalogs, or social media, for example. So that responsiveness index, that ability to identify individuals who have the likelihood of being comfortable with the medium, is really important. And the second criteria, of course, is the affinity between the product that you, or the service that you have to offer, and the same product or service that's made available through the list owner or the media channel that you're selecting. So you have to keep those two dimensions in mind, responsiveness and affinity with your product. When you're targeting, you're going to focus less on demographics, the age, income, education, and so on, that are typically used for awareness building, because you want to segment and focus in on a specific group of consumers, whereas in a multi-channel relationship environment, you're trying to focus on behavior. First of all, media-related behavior. Are individuals receptive to receiving a direct mail campaign, an email message, a telemarketing phone call, or any number of those things? Do they typically respond to them? And do they purchase? Are they active within the category where you have something to offer? So behavior is much more important. Interest, behavior, affinity, far more important than demographics, because at the end of the day, we want people who are currently interested, have a need, are engaged with a particular category of product. And so behavior is much more important overall than demographics. So understanding that, we need to identify which are the right media that we need to use in whatever situation we're trying to achieve, whatever result we're trying to achieve. So we have multiple media available to us, and here's a few of them. Now, we have traditional media, and they can be used in the traditional awareness building environment with a response component that allows us to not only create awareness, but also generate some form of a response. It may be a request for a product sample, a special introductory offer, some kind of information. And so creating that action and leveraging the existing media buy allows us to transform something that is essentially designed for, or fundamentally designed for, awareness, but also create some interaction with the brand to be able to generate some kind of interaction that will allow us to understand who the customer is, to be able to identify them, and then move them forward through the customer journey. So we're going to specifically be talking about, first of all, mail, direct mail used in either an addressed or unaddressed function. And we're going to be talking about email and some of the tools that we can use to target through email the kinds of lists that are available to us for acquisition, for example. And we're going to do that looking at all the different media available to us. Keeping in mind always that we have different goals that we're trying to achieve. They may be acquisition or retention or growing customer value through new product introductions and so on. So understanding what we're trying to achieve and understanding that at each stage we have an influence and an impact on what's going on at the other levels. For example, when we do an acquisition campaign, whatever we do in terms of offer and in terms of the creative and the messaging and so on, and the way we communicate, the tools that we use will have an impact on which consumers we'll attract, who will be bringing into our database, who will become engaged with the brand, and we have to understand how that will impact on the retention. So if we attract customers that are more interested in participating in our contests or getting a free something, a sample of some kind, or some kind of giveaway, then we have to understand that our level of retention will not be as great as if the customer is, or the consumer is, responding for the product itself because of an interest or a need. So we have to keep that in mind. We have to be very mindful of that fact as we build our programs and select our media. The more superficial the response, the lower the value moving forward. Our likelihood of retention, of converting to a paid customer, of growing their value over time will be affected by that. So let's take a moment and look at customer acquisition more specifically. And this is where we can leverage a number of tools that exist that will involve both mail and email, but also broad media that would be used to drive to a website. So our process in customer acquisition will look something like this. In 4 basic stages, we have a first stage where we reach out to a large number of consumers, attempting to drive them to our digital assets, our website, our Facebook page, and so on, to be able to engage with them, maybe provide them with some preliminary information, and then connect with them so that they identify themselves. And they provide us with their email address and perhaps their postal address and some transactional information or some interest information, their preferred brands and some of their personal characteristics. And maybe through a quiz of some kind, we find out what their personality might be. And so we gather some information that will help us to influence the relevance of the information or of the communication moving forward. And then understanding who the customer is and what they're looking for, we can then nurture that relationship through a series of ongoing communications. And then eventually, when the customer is ready to buy, convert them to a paid customer and to a loyal customer through ongoing cultivation. So if we look at the types of media choices that we have available to us at those 4 different stages, well, on the drive side, we have, of course, traditional media, mass media used in a response context where we're attempting to get people to move to the website, to the Facebook page, to engage with the brand and provide some information. Of course, social media is a second channel that we can use as well to do that, driving people to the Facebook page, getting them to identify themselves, getting them to like the page and perhaps fill out some kind of device or form that will allow us to understand who they are. Search engine marketing, of course, plays an important role in driving to web, quite obviously. Web display advertising as well, but also direct mail, potentially unaddressed direct mail to the broad marketplace, getting people to go to a website in order to engage with some form of content, be it video or questionnaire or something of some kind that will allow them to understand a bit more about our brand and our product. And of course, email. Email can be used as an acquisition vehicle. It doesn't give you the same response rate as direct mail, for example, but it does provide the basis for a means of communicating with the customer. So those are the tools to drive to our digital assets. And of course, we connect through the website itself and the social platforms, creating that understanding of who the customer is. Very important to be able to identify and communicate with the customer on an individual basis because we are in relationship marketing environment. We want to make sure that we understand and know who the customer is as an individual. And then we nurture that relationship on an ongoing basis over perhaps several days, several weeks, several months, and in some cases even over several years through digital channels such as email and social media, but also through ongoing communication and direct mail to be able to provide information and value to the customer. Building up that trusted relationship that's so important to be able to create a long-lasting relationship with our customer, a loyal customer who finds value in what we have to offer. That trust, of course, as we know, is essential to that ongoing relationship. And then finally, at some point in time, we're able to convert through powerful, compelling offers and so on, convert the customer to an actual buyer, a customer of some kind, through e-commerce, through points of sale, through call center, and other means. So that is the articulation at a very high level of how we would put all of this together in a sequence for customer acquisition. Within that context, we will potentially want to use direct mail and email to be able to reach out to prospective customers and get them to engage with our digital assets in our brand. So lists, direct mail lists and email lists are going to play an important role in that respect. So let's talk about the different direct mail list types that are available to us. And the first basic level is no list at all through unaddressed ad mail. So unaddressed gives us the potential to reach a certain population within a delimited geographic area and to be able to either saturate or target in a very fine way groups of individuals, groups of homes that are within our trading area, for example, within the areas that have the greatest likelihood of purchasing our product. Ad mail, unaddressed ad mail is great when you have a product that has a high level of incidence in the population. Products such as basically retailing and restaurants and personal services and things like that. So if you have a dry cleaner, great tool to be able to reach out to your immediate community, to be able to contact the customers that are within your trading area. And it allows you to do so at a very low cost. Now we have to keep in mind, of course, that we're not targeting individuals, we're talking to households. And in a broader sense, within the community, we're reaching out to groups of individuals as opposed to specific consumers. So it's not as targeted as it would be if you're using addressed ad mail and a list, but it certainly provides you with the ability at a very low cost, very affordably, to go into a market with a communication piece that will reach out to a large number of individuals with a high likelihood of them having a need for your product. Now, you can refine that. It doesn't have to be carpet bombing. In fact, you can be very precise in your targeting, and there's some tools available to marketers, to local businesses who want to use unaddressed ad mail in a very precise way. So Precision Targeter is an online tool that allows you to be able to select specific letter carrier routes, to be able to select distribution that is based on your trading area, some demographic characteristics within the population, to be able to even base your selection on drive time, because we know that consumers typically will not travel more than 15 minutes to make any of those day-to-day purchases. So drive time can be a great criteria for making more finite, more precise selections on where you distribute your material. That being said, for many of us, many marketers, you need to be able to zero in on a population that is very precise, very narrow, because the incidence of product use or category use is relatively low in the population. Or you need to communicate a fairly detailed message that may require some level of personalization. So after that first step of unaddressed ad mail, there are a series of different types of mailing lists that you can then rent for use in a marketing campaign. The first level, of course, is compiled lists. And these are from, although the name says it, a compiled source. So it could be from the phone book, or it could be from some kind of listing, or some kind of membership roster, or any public source that's available. And they have a large number, typically a large number of individuals on that list. But the source isn't related to anything other than its own structure. So what we know about, for example, something compiled from the white pages from the phone book would simply tell us that these individuals have a phone number, and that doesn't tell us a lot about behavior. Remember that one of our criteria early on is to be able to target responsiveness and behavior. So this will provide us with perhaps the lowest level of relevance in our communication. The next level, of course, is to take a compiled list and add an overlay of some kind that may be geographic, it may be demographic in nature, or it may be behavioral or psychographic in nature. So understanding that you can enrich the information on a compiled list with additional information from potentially public sources such as the census. It may be private information as well that's overlaid into that, to provide that list with some additional information to be able to target more precisely who we're talking to. And that will provide you with a much greater lift in response. The next level, of course, is a response list. So these are lists of individuals who have specifically responded to a direct marketing message of some kind. It could be through direct mail, it could be through email, it might be telemarketing, it might be through a catalog, it might be through direct response TV. And so that additional layer of responsiveness allows us to ensure that we're talking to people who are receptive to the messages and to the media that we're using to reach them. So if you are a catalog marketer, you want to be using lists of individuals who respond or who shop using a catalog. So very important to understand that dynamic and the importance of the responsiveness element of any list. And then last but not least, and perhaps the most important of all, of course, in terms of list types, is your house file. And everything that you do to your house file will provide you with a much greater response rate than you would find with any of the other acquisition lists, because of course you're talking to your own customers. Keep in mind that inactive customers are going to be one of the greatest sources of new business for you, because they will, to a great degree, respond or reactivate as you continue to market to them over time, perhaps to a greater degree than any of the other list types. So going out to non-customers will provide you with a lower response rate than if you go back to your house list. So what are some of the criteria that you would use in choosing the right list? Well, there are a few here on the screen. And as you see, the first one, and I alluded to it earlier, is the responsive behavior. To find an individual who will respond to a direct mail piece, who will order through e-commerce, who will respond to an email message, who will answer a telemarketing call, who will read a catalog and order from it, are very, very important things. So look to the list and find out if there is a responsiveness element to it, or is it simply a compiled list that has no responsive information. The source of the list itself, where does it come from? How was it created? Is it a compiled list? Is it a response list? Is it a database that's been enriched in some way, shape, or form? The affinity and, of course, the ability to purchase is also important. So how close is the list category, if you wish, the list owner's category of business? How close is it to your own? For example, if you're marketing sports equipment and you find a list of individuals who are interested in outdoor activities, then you have a lot of affinity there. So you want to find lists that are within your own category, not necessarily direct competitors. They may in fact be complementary to what you do. And so that affinity is very important. And of course, the ability to purchase your product, particularly if you have a high-end product, then you want to take a look at the kinds of average purchase that will typically be found in the list that you're considering. So the ability to buy is also very important. Now, recency is also super important, and understanding at what frequency the list is updated, if it's an annual or every other year, or maybe even less often than that, then the value of that list will be greatly diminished. You want to look for something that's updated monthly or on an ongoing basis, or perhaps quarterly, to make sure that your information is up to date. So as you know, people move. And for example, in Quebec on July 1st, a lot of individuals all move on the same day. So if you're renting a list that isn't updated frequently, you'll end up with a lot of addresses that are out of date. People who've moved on, so they're not reachable. So, of course, you could do the updating using the Canada Post movers file and be able to update the addresses. You would hope that the list owner would do that for you, so you don't have to go to not the trouble, but there's a moderate cost to do that. But you're looking for lists that are totally up to date. Compliance is important. There's privacy legislation. You have to make sure that the list owner has gone to the effort of making sure that people have either opted in, if it's an email list, or have been given an opportunity to opt out, if it's a direct mail list. And last but not least, of course, the size of the list is important. The ability to scale up after you've done your initial list testing, to be able to scale that list to a large size and be able to generate a sufficient number of responses from it is also very important. So where do you find out the answers to all of these questions? How do you do that? Well, essentially, the list profile is what you want to look at. Most list managers, most list brokers will have list profiles for all the lists that are available for rental purposes. So here's a list profile that was provided to us by the Cornerstone group of companies, and it has a lot of information on it. So I want to take a moment or two to go through some of the key areas of a list profile so you know what to be looking for. So first of all, first and foremost, you have a description. And on the description, you have some information as to how the list was created, what its source is, what its nature is. Here I've underlined the fact that this is a list that contains people who are responsive to direct mail. So that's a very, very important criteria, a very important fact, and it's clearly indicated here. There's some demographic information below that and so on, perhaps of less interest than the responsiveness itself. Now, the next area over here, we see the size of the list, 198,572. So this is a very large list for Canadian Living magazine. And next to it is the minimum order. So 5,000 names would be the minimum order that you can obtain for this. And in many cases, you'll want to go beyond that. Often 5,000 is used as the criteria for selecting the size for a list test. And we'll talk about that in a moment, about testing and how that number should be determined. But basically here you see the constraints around the ordering and, of course, the cost. So $130 a thousand is the base cost to rent this. And then to that, we can add in some selectivity. So you have the ability to target your customers based on postal code. The FSA is, in fact, the first 3 digits of the postal code, and that allows you to zero in on a more geographically narrow community. You can do it by province and so on. All of these different criteria are there. But things to look out for example, are hotline names. So these are individuals who've purchased or responded or subscribed, in this case, during the last 3 months. So they are The name says it, they're hot. They have recently demonstrated the ability to purchase an interest. They're actively engaged, and so they typically will respond more actively than other names within the database. So it's a good thing to look for that kind of information and invest, for example, in a select to reach hotline names. Change of address, same kind of thing, same phenomenon. Individuals who move tend to have a lot of needs. They tend to purchase a lot more things because they've just moved into a new place. They need to repaint, redecorate. They need to be able to do all kinds of things around the home. There's some interesting research that shows that new movers actually are more likely to buy a new car within the first 6 months after moving. So they're also very interesting for the automotive industry. Now, a little further down, the last line underlined in red indicates direct mail sold. So that means that these individuals specifically responded to a direct mail package, a direct mail offer. So the additional charge of $10 is definitely worth the investment because they will typically be more receptive to responding to something they receive through the mail. So great value there. It's important to understand all of these selects and how you can use them to enhance your list selection to be able to zero in on consumers. They'll have a greater likelihood to buy your product. Now, I mentioned updates earlier. Over here, you see on the left-hand side, this list is updated quarterly, which is excellent. And so you want to make sure that it is more frequently than yearly, definitely, to get something that is more up to date. There's a little mention here that some of the age and income data is overlaid from public sources. So you have to understand that in this case, and it's the case in many different situations, the information is not individual, but it is aggregate information based on location. And so you must realize that if the average age is X, it doesn't mean that the person you're talking to is specifically that age. It's more of an indication than a precise measurement. And last but not least, you have the provincial breakdown of quantities. Within that 198,000 individuals, the breakdown by province, so how many reside in Ontario, in Quebec, in the West, and the East. So this list profile is really rich in information. It gives you all of the different possibilities for selection. It allows you to be more focused and targeted in whatever you do. So moving on to email, similar situation. Again, there are different types of lists compiled from different sources. The first level is contest participants. And there are a large number of email lists that are created specifically by organizations using contests to generate names. And we have to understand that these individuals, the only affinity that they have typically is the fact that they love to enter contests. They like to participate in sweepstakes and all kinds of possibilities. So we always have to understand if, in fact, they also not only entered but are buyers, that they are actively engaged with the brand, or are they simply respondents to contests. The impact, of course, is that if you go to individuals who only respond to contests, and you also use a contest to attract people on your database, they may not convert. In fact, they will most likely not convert into paid customers because their specific behavior is, in fact, entering contests. Next level up, survey responders. And these are individuals who like to share their opinion and tell you about themselves and how they feel and how they think. They may fill out surveys about what their preferred brands are. They may talk about their personal behavior and how they react to various purchasing situations and so on. So that has much more value than the pure contest participants. They tell you about themselves. They are responsive to mail since they have interacted with it in some way, shape, or form, and they're open to providing information. They're open to sharing who they are and what they believe in. So those will provide you with greater value and more understanding as to what they're looking for. The third level, of course, is newsletter subscribers, and these are individuals who have made a commitment to a specific category of information. Great thing about them is that they enjoy reading. So the fact that they want to receive email newsletters around a given subject tells you that they are open to getting more information, that they're interested in that specific subject, and so they can become good targets for offers that are relevant to that specific subject matter. For example, if they subscribe to a beauty fashion newsletter, then they will be good targets for a cosmetics offer, a beauty offering, fashion information. And so that relevance from the sector of interest increases the value of the list and the relevance of using it for ongoing communication. And then last but not least, and obviously the most important group, is online buyers. These are individuals who not only engage with brands on the web, but they also purchase through e-commerce. And so they have a much greater quality. And if you have something to sell through an e-commerce website, you'll want to be looking to target buyers more specifically. So understanding that, you're able to make better choices in which lists you will rent. Here's a similar profile for email lists, again from Cornerstone, and it has a similar structure, basic information on the origin or the source of the list itself. This profile is for the Reader's Digest master file email for English Canadians, and there's a description of who Reader's Digest is and how they've compiled this list, the sources being product buyers and subscribers, and so on and so forth. And it gives you a sample breakdown within those different categories. So it gives you a lot more information on exactly what this list is made up of. Typically highly responsive individuals. Our quantities here are sufficiently large. You have 680,719 individuals in the database, again a minimum order of 5,000 and a cost of 180. To that, you obviously have to add in the select costs, so you have the possibility of targeting more finely based on location, on gender, on income. Again, these are aggregate income numbers. Direct mail sold. So if you want to rent both the email list and the direct mail list and combine the two into an integrated campaign, you have the ability to do that, and you have the ability to identify and target more precisely individuals who are receptive to direct mail. New individuals to the file, buyers, all possibilities that you can target more precisely, gives you much better control over who you're talking to. Broadcast fee, I mentioned that a moment ago. The list itself is always managed or always maintained by the owner. They don't send you a file that you use yourself to do the broadcast, so there's a fee. They will send the information out for you. They'll send the campaign out. You provide them with the HTML files, and they do the broadcast, charge you a nominal fee, and then provide you with all the reporting of how effective the campaign has been. So that's typically how that works. Again, I mentioned the age and income data. This, again, is overlaid from a variety of public and corporate sources, so it is aggregate information inferred at an individual level. It's not actual precise information that is specific to the individual. And again, last but not least, geographic targeting, so you understand the breakdown from one region to the other, and you can focus on an individual specific province or FSA or market in a very fine way. So, understanding all of that, you realize that there is a balance between the cost of the list and the outcome. The lower the cost of the list, typically associated with the compiled lists that have a very low level of targeting, a low level of responsiveness, versus the responsive lists that are more costly but provide greater results at the end of the day. So you need to achieve a balance. You need to test different possibilities to see what works for you, for your offers, for your possibilities, that your campaigns, to make sure that you're getting the best value overall. And what's really important is to avoid just going with one single list, of only trying one possibility and then not knowing whether your success was a fluke or whether, in fact, you could have had much greater results if you'd gone to something else. So not putting your eggs in the same basket is really, really important. And I'll show you on the next slide the impact of testing different lists within the context of a campaign. It's very important to understand the targeting dynamics and the selection criteria and how all of this interacts. So here is a depersonalized example from an actual campaign that we did for one of our clients. And you see that each column represents a different list. The red, orange, and yellow lists are in fact house lists, different segments within a house file, past customers, prospects, inquiries, and so on. The blue lists are response lists that were rented for this campaign, and the purple lists over on the right-hand side are in fact compiled lists that were used also in the test mode to see just what kind of results they would provide. So you see that the response rates vary greatly between the highest segment, which is an internal list of customers, versus some compiled lists of potential customers on the right-hand side. And the overall response rate for the campaign when we did the test was 3%. And you see there are a number that are way below that number and below the objective that was at 2%, represented by that dotted red line. So if we look at moving forward, you eliminate the results that are below 2% and maintain only the lists that are providing good value to you. You see there's only one compiled list that made the cut. The rest are either response lists or house lists. And so you see that by eliminating those and then remailing during the next cycle, whether it's the next season or the next year, you're able to optimize your results, producing an overall response rate of 3.6% or increasing your response by 22% overall, which is a very significant gain. In fact, you're increasing your sales by 22%. That is very impressive in terms of actual increase in your profitability. Your ROI goes up, and so you're using your resources more effectively. Another way of getting at a more finite targeting of your customers is to use Geo Demographic Segmentation. And this is a very popular way of focusing in on groups of individuals, keeping in mind, of course, that when you're doing this, you're using typically census data. You're using aggregate information that will allow you to understand the makeup of a small group of households within a geographic area. Now, in neighborhoods that are highly homogeneous, that works fine because the average is, in fact, an average of everyone in that population. When the population is more diverse, then the averages are less meaningful. So in some cases, this will work very well. For certain products, it will work very well, or services. In other cases, it's more difficult to achieve any significant growth. And it may vary from community to community. So this segmentation model of using geographic and demographic criteria can be good in some cases and less in others. So you have to test again to see if this will provide you with the lift that you're looking for. Now, I think you should also know about this. This is very new and very exciting. This is the new list published by Canada Post. And when you think about it, it makes perfect sense that Canada Post actually has access to all the addresses in Canada. Canada Complete is, in fact, a list of every household, every door in Canada, both homes and businesses. It includes 7.3 million consumer names, so we have names of individuals residing at those addresses, and 13 million addresses across the country. What's interesting as well is that you're able to target more precisely. I mean, not everyone wants to mail 13 million direct mail pieces, so you have the ability, obviously on a geographic basis, but also using lifestyle criteria and demographic overlays to be able to refine even more so your message and focus in on the households and the individuals that will produce the greatest results. So getting back to our media selection of the traditional, the mail, email, web, social, mobile, and call center, let's spend a moment talking about how we can transform traditional media into a powerful way of communicating with customers. Now, typically, for traditional media, what we're trying to do is to, in a response environment, is to select content, day parts, and environments that allow us to be able to generate a result, a reaction, a response. And so when you're watching the hockey game and your team is ahead, you're not going to go and pick up the phone and start calling a call center to make an order. You want low involvement content. You want fringe programming and late night when there's not much going on and you don't really mind giving up that whatever you're watching to go and respond and react. Often you'll focus on remnant and unsold buys to drive down the cost of reaching out to your customers. And often in print, you'll use sections like classified ads to be able to reach customers who are looking for opportunities and things of that nature. In magazines, it's more inserts. So bound in and blown in inserts will break the book and have consumers stop and take notice of your message and then remove it and respond to it as they go. So different environment, different focus, looking at different things in different ways. When you put a multimedia campaign, a multi-channel campaign together that involves mass media and direct, it's important to understand how they all interact. So this diagram shows you the use of television as a means to generate inquiries driving to web, layering in magazines also with a response component, perhaps some video pre-roll and so on, creating those channels that will drive the consumer to the website in order to respond. You can use email to reach out to your customer base, or use acquisition email to be able to attract new customers, again, to your website, to your call center, or to your stores, of course. And then direct mail can come in as you move forward through your campaign. Having created a certain amount of awareness for the first 2 or 3 weeks, you then capitalize on that awareness by delivering your direct mail. And in that way, it leverages the media buy and creates a greater response overall by timing it in that way. And if you're generating requests, then you can then mail out subsequent waves of mail and send out subsequent waves of email to accompany all of that to generate trials and purchase at the point of sale. Social media can be used both pre-campaign to generate a buzz around whatever you're going to launch, reaching out to influencers in the marketplace, allowing them to try before everyone else, giving them that opportunity, and then having them give their opinion and testimonials about it, and then launch through the traditional channels supported through social media. And of course, we want to make sure that the call center is involved and aware of what's going on so that they are adequately staffed and effectively handling all the customer inquiries. So moving on to the grow stage, we have to look at how we can segment our customer database, how we can focus on the right individuals to be able to maximize and optimize our marketing investment. So you've seen this diagram before in previous webinars, essentially reminding us of the importance of retaining our top customers using highly response-driven media, such as direct mail, that maximizes our response rate, growing the value of our middle-tier customers, and by using modeling and predictive modeling, of course, and analytics, be able to identify the individuals that will have the greatest likelihood of increasing in value if they're properly communicated to. And then isolating the consumers that have low value and managing their cost effectively so that you drive out the high-cost media from that tier, managing your budget more effectively, focusing on the customers that will deliver more value. Always keeping in mind, of course, that the top 5% of your customers can represent 150% or more of your actual profits, and that 50% that disappears magically at the end of the year goes to pay for the communication and the marketing and the servicing to the low-value customers at the bottom of that pyramid. So always keep that in mind. Focus appropriately on the customers within your database that are going to deliver most value. So again, we have a hierarchy in the kinds of segments within the house file. The lowest value, of course, will be the prospect file. They're not actual customers. They're people who've expressed an interest, and we want to move them forward to the next step, which is to actually engage with the brand and make that first purchase. So the response rate will be accordingly much lower. Lapsed and inactive customers will then be the next tier, and they will respond to a greater degree than anyone who is not an active customer. Active customers provide you with the optimal result, and of course we have our best customers, and we want to make sure that we treat them appropriately and maximize their retention, make sure that they get the best value and the best customer experience possible. So making distinctions within these different tiers of customers, we can use data mining and modeling to be able to focus our energies on the right people. It's all a question of probabilities, of course. When we use these data tools, there's no black and white answer, but there is a likelihood of being able to find individuals that are more likely to need, more likely to respond to whatever we have to offer them. So there are 6 different types of typical models that are used for this kind of segmentation or this kind of modeling approach. First of all, scoring and ranking models that allow us to classify our customers based on value and probability of purchase, allowing us to be able to rank our customers on typically using deciles or centiles, finding the individuals that are the best value customers, the ones that we want to hang on to, the ones that have the greatest likelihood of continuing their behavior, and then, of course, being able to focus our energies on them. Segmentation and cluster analysis allow us to identify individuals that have similar behavior, that have similar characteristics, and so we can focus on different messages on different individuals and make our information more relevant. Recommendation algorithms, very popular these days. I'll show you an example in a moment. Predictive models allow us to tell the future of what consumers are actually going to do. Next best product models, for example, would identify the product that a customer is most likely to need as their next step. And last but not least, churn models that allow us to predict which customers are most likely to move on to the competition. So just very briefly on some of these different tools, segmentation and cluster analysis, really very effective in not attributing subjectively customers into different groups, but actually allowing the data to tell us how different groups of customers will kind of become cohesive groups within our database that have similar behavior, that have similar characteristics. More important that it be similar behavior in terms of purchasing and so on than actual characteristics, because what we're interested in is behavior at the end of the day. Outlier detection is another great tool that you can use to identify customers that have non-typical behavior or who change their behavior all of a sudden, and so demonstrate that perhaps they are about to churn, or that they are in fact low-value customers that are going to cost you money to serve, or that they are in fact best customers that you should hold on to. Ranking and classification, another very effective tool, again, creating those different classifications, those different deciles of customers, finding the customers that have the greatest value, the greatest potential of growing to greater value. And then recommendation algorithms, super interesting. This is a great bit of information that we found on the What's Next blog at CNN about the Netflix algorithm. And in fact, what they've told us is that 75% of all the videos that people watch are found through some kind of recommendation tool that's made available either through their website or their app. So powerful ways of identifying things that consumers are most likely to need or to want or to enjoy, and using that information to help them make better choices. And of course, predictive modeling, super powerful stuff, analyzing consumer behavior line by line to determine what products are the best fit, are most likely to be needed. We all remember the story in the New York Times Magazine that was reported not so long ago about Target's ability to be able to analyze all the transactional information that's available and make determinations on products that are needed. For example, identifying within their customer base women that are pregnant and understanding what trimester, in fact, they might be in based on their purchasing behavior in order to make recommendations on products that they should buy, baby furniture and clothing and diapers and so on. So it's fascinating to what extent you can use predictive modeling and targeting to be able to focus on the customer and make very specific, very precise, and very personal recommendations on the kinds of products that they may need. And then last but not least, let's think of our prospect database for a moment. And with any form of marketing automation tool that's available to us to be able to track navigation activity on the website, you're able to score your customers based on their interaction. Now, this is typically used in B2B, but can also be used in a B2C environment, business to consumer environment, for not just lead scoring, but also customer interaction scoring, where you can either assign a subjective valuation to the value of each asset in each page and each content that's visited, and determine the weight of the frequency that is involved and attribute a value to that. And when the individual reaches a certain score, then you decide to engage in the next action, send out an email, have the call center call, have some kind of interaction going on. But you can also use modeling to analyze a mass of data to determine, in fact, which assets, which pages, which bits of information have most value, are the most influential in predicting a consumer's likelihood of purchasing. determining the weight in the calculation, the influence of each of those elements, and then creating a score that's much more dynamic, much more precise. So we have some valuable information that we can then use and apply to the database going forward as people interact with our website. We can then determine whether or not they are likely to be good customers. So that, in a nutshell, is media and targeting in a relationship marketing building environment. So keep in mind these following things. Target based on responsiveness and affinity, much more important than demographic characteristics. Follow the customer journey, using the right tools at the right moment of that decision-making cycle. Of course, you want to choose the lists that are right for you, that are going to provide the greatest value and the highest response rate. You want to continually be testing to make sure that you find the right ones, that they continue to perform well, and that you're constantly adding to that pool of high-powered lists. Of course, you need to understand the analytics tools and use them effectively to improve your targeting, pick the right models, refine them as you go, and make sure that you're constantly looking to improve the ROI of whatever you do. So basically, that's what we had to tell you today. Thank you very much for your attention, Rodrigo.
Yes, thank you, Mark, for a great presentation on how to optimize our media spend. And I think you wanted to thank our sponsors.
Absolutely. Before we go, I just want to again thank all of our sponsors, both Canada Post, first and foremost, for making this whole series possible. It's of great value to marketers and agencies across the country. Of course, XMPie for their contribution, and Xerox as well as the Low Martin Group. So thank you very much again for your support.
Fantastic. Well, this concludes today's webinar. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you found it useful and insightful. So, on behalf of Mark and myself and our sponsors, we wish you a great day and talk to you soon. Take care.